What's up guys, that got the pencil here, and as I reread this series and script videos on characters with many more versions and feats, let's talk about the mighty, the powerful, the great Galand, commandment of truth. So, Galand is a goon. He seriously is, and it's honestly pretty wild, as even with his rather small amount of screen time, he managed to absolutely set himself firmly as a dangerous character in the series of 7 Deadly Sins. Galand is one of the 10 commandments, and the one truly used to establish the threat of the new group of demons that were just released upon Britannia. Simply establish himself as a credible presence, Galand ignores all orders from his higher-ups and pulls up on Camelot. Now, let's put this in the context. In Camelot, you have 3 of the 7 deadly sins. Now, these aren't just any 3 members of the 7 deadly sins. You have Diane, the physically strongest and largest sin, who was armed with her secret treasure Gideon that allowed her to easily create a floating mountain and made her one of the most threatening beings in Britannia due to her raw power and physical might. Then, you have Merlin, the greatest sorceress that Britannia has ever known, armed with her sacred treasure Alden. This is the same Merlin that took Leonis' best magic user Vivian and fodderized her casually, and was so powerful that she had to be removed from the battle with Grey Demon Hendrickson. Finally, you have the captain of the 7 deadly sins Meliodas, who up to this point in his berserk state was hands down the strongest character the series had seen up to that point. Except now, he was even more powerful, because he had complete access to his sacred treasure, which as explained to us by King, and shown just the battle before, drastically increases a sin's power, as it allows them full access to it. So some of the series' strongest and their best possible positions that we've ever seen them at this point in Meliodas' case, and what happens when Galand shows up with absolutely zero magic. He tears them apart. First thing to address, Hawks reads his power level. It was 26,000. This was over 5 times higher than the highest given power level from a base sin that we had seen up to this point in Merlin, and still over twice as high as the strongest power level we had gotten from King, which was twice that of an Albion. And Galand was this powerful without his magic. He then proceeds to absolutely slap everyone present. He dominates Meliodas and all his clones, casually reading all their attacks while piercing through them with ease. Then proceeds to casually one-shot Diane by kicking her own weapon right back into her face when she went to swing it for him. To top it all off, he outpaced Merlin so badly that she believed she had teleported him away, only for him to leap right back in behind her. Merlin's teleportation was portrayed as a nigh-on instantaneous process that instantly blitzed Leonis' best magic user so bad that Vivian couldn't even teleport in response. However, Galand sensed that it was going to occur, leaped out of Merlin's teleportation range for an instant, and proceeded to leap right back in behind her. He moved so fast that Merlin couldn't even comprehend him. Then he proceeds to casually outdo an ability that is meant to paralyze him in place for a moment, with Slater's overpower instantly being overpowered by Galand's sheer presence. Then, just to introduce us to the threat that they are, Merlin is then turned to stone by Galand's commandment of truth, but we'll get into that later. To not even stop there, Meliodas goes Demon Mark, the same Demon Mark that easily overwhelmed and annihilated a Hunter's Fest amped Bond, who is the equivalent of base Bond and base Meliodas' pure power combined. However, it is all useless against Galand, and Meliodas is forced to go into his berserk state. This berserk state was so dangerous that Meliodas was forced to hold it back, even though all his attacks that he was doing did absolutely nothing to Galand. Even with all that extreme power, going as far as to trap Galand in a pillar of absolute darkness that was taking all of Meliodas' energy, Galand simply shrugged it off, impaled Meliodas, and was about to slaughter everyone there if not for Gother coming in the clutch for the sins and honestly all of Camelot. This one appearance established Galand alone as a threat beyond anything that the series had seen up to this point by a long shot, and he was still far from his true self. Galand returns to the commandments, boasting about killing Meliodas and some sins only to get his bluff called by the commandments. Then he realized that he was bamboozled and gets extremely angry. He proceeds to hunt down Diane, who he senses approaching the commandments. He rolls up to Diane, questioning why she isn't dead, and Diane swings full force to get him away. But instead of even deflecting the attack this time, he just casually catches it in one hand. He then attacks and is about to kill her for real this time until Matrona stepped in and off-guarded both Galand and Monspeed. However, Galand still has taken no damage up to this point, and while not even really hitting her directly, manages to damage Matrona. Straight up, with no issue at all while he was just swinging blindly. Then we get Galand's first on-screen loss. Meliodas shows up with his post-Druid amp and slaps Galand. Actually hits him so hard that Galand's face is permanently dented from the impact. And now Galand is even more livid, hopping up, angry, and wanting to fight Meliodas again immediately. However, he is warded off and is forced to go out with Malaskila to regain his old strength. Now we get to Galand versus Bond. And while Bond is still massively outmatched by Galand like all other sins were at this point, the impressive thing that is highlighted here for Galand is his sheer durability. because Ban outplays Galand, steals a majority of his strength, and slams the strength of multiple beings around him, and proceeds to just hit it all at Galand, absolutely beating him down with no remorse. But Galand actually just takes it all. He doesn't even get dented like Meliodas did to him, even though Melascula notes that Ban is Galand's superior in this moment. However, Galand takes it all with no visible damage, and then once Ban is forced to retreat after almost getting his soul eaten, Galand recovers his strength and then treats his enemies like a moving golf hole, swinging for them with massive boulders just to show off. Now we get to Galand's petrification, where he makes the mistake of challenging the final and at the time strongest sin, Escanor. He shows off his peak state, critical over here, where he goes into a berserk state of raw physical power, but it's all worthless. He barely manages to cut Escanor, and he proceeds to break his own commandment and turn to stone. But wait, hold on, the madman isn't done just yet. With Diane and King's flashback, we see Galand in the past, and this is where a lot of Galand's best feats come in for him. First things first, he rather casually survives an Omega Arc from 2 Archangels, even saving Melascula. Now, the Archangels themselves state that one of them is worth 2 commandments, so it's really good for Galand that he managed to survive both of them working together to kill him and his allies. To top that off, he proceeds to damage Tarmiel. Actually, you know what, let me rephrase that. He manages to bisect Tarmiel right down the middle with a 1 attack, while it took Derriere 50 plus hits to mangle his faces. Then, Tarmiel attempts to destroy Galand with a gigantic blast of light, and Galand struggles with it, but is surviving. However, instead of just holding that forever, he activates critical over it, lifts up the blast, and slams it down right on Sariel. However, then Galand does get absolutely dominated by Ludoshel. Then, though, he does proceed to recover and retreat, which is rather impressive. However, that is the end of Galand the Great, as when Estarossa finds him in the present, as a statue, Estarossa just murders him and takes his commandment. Now, you want to know the crazy thing? Galand is way past his prime. He's 991, and demons typically only live for 1,000 years. He's always commenting on losing his stride and not being as strong as he used to be, and honestly missing the glory days in his old friends, like Baruha, one of the previous commandments who turned Endura. Now, like a lot of characters in 7 Deadly Sins, Galand was stronger in the past. How much stronger though, I cannot answer. He's simply an old demon, almost like the Demon King, who would be much better with a younger body. It's just an interesting thing to note. Now, let's get into Galand's abilities and why he's so unironically dangerous despite his upfront, jovial, and careless nature. Galand is a demon, and like all other demons, he has a specific set of species-wide abilities. 1. His darkness. Darkness, or dark matter, is super diverse in terms of its utility. It allows Galand to fly by creating wings, it allows for extra defense as a thin but strong shield, and Galand can simply create constructs with the darkness, whether they be weapons or other creations. Then he can heal himself with his darkness, including massive gaping holes left by beings as strong as Ludoshel. Then he can sense magic across large distances and communicate telepathically. Finally, he can extract the soul of another being with a touch and proceed to consume it to gain their memories, magical power, and knowledge. And honestly, Galand's abilities end there, as he really stretches the basic demonic abilities to the limits in combination with his raw power. This leads us with his commandment, Truth. Honestly, this is a dangerous ability that Galand himself must always be worried about. If a person lies or goes against their word in his presence, they shall be turned to stone. However, the condition is that a person must know they are lying, so if someone accidentally does, they will not be affected. However, the ability is also very situational. Very rarely will a person simply knowingly lie in combat, so it occurs in unexpected situations, like Merlin trying to survive or Galand breaking his own rules. Then, for his last ability, we have his innate magical power, Critical Over. This allows him to access a berserker state that pushes his body to the utmost physical limits until his magic runs out. This state is massively more buff and spiky than his base form, and amps him physically all around. He goes from being overwhelmed by Tarmiel's attack to holding it like a giant ball and slamming it down on someone else. Then he has his passive resistance to paralysis and intimidation attacks, which he responds with by releasing his own bloodlust and malefic aura. Finally, you have his weapon, the halberd, the harpoon and axe-sided weapon that he uses his destructive techniques with. To top all of this off, Galand has really good battle sense, skill, and a lot of experience. He's easily able to read Meliodas, an extremely skilled and experienced fighter in his own right, and he could instantly decipher Escanor's true threatening nature off of one glance. All of that is really effective. Now, where does this put Galand? Well, it actually gives him some good late series scaling. He scales well to lower tier Archangels, if not directly to them at his peak in Critical Over. Even Astral Body lower tier Archangels can fight with 3 Commandment Mael, and that is no small feat. However, Galand does get cut off from that point, as end of series characters are way too far out of his range. However, I would say he is the 7th strongest of the modern 10 Commandments, easily putting him above the entire beginning of series and places him well around the mid-series at his peak, above characters like base post-druid Meliodas, relative to post-training King, above base post-training Diane, and above post-memories Gother, but lower than higher tier commandments like Zeldris, Estarossa, Gloxinia, and the like. With his past self-scaling, he hits around lesser Archangel level, but he stops there. Overall, for an old demon with a drinking problem, he's really strong. Galand is still one of my favorite commandments. He isn't that deep or complex, but he's just fun. In the story, he did his job of establishing the threat of the Ten Commandments perfectly, showing off the overwhelming might of the Demon King's elite force of warriors. He's fantastic, and honestly, his little relationships with the younger members of his entourage are great. I wish he got more screen time. And honestly, a more satisfying end. However, he shall always be, at least to me, Galand the Great. What's up guys, that got the pencil here. I hope you enjoyed the video on the mighty Galand, and honestly a personal favorite of mine. The next How Strong Is episode is up in the air, but a part of me wants to do all the relevant commandments, so I may just do that. Regardless, thank you for watching. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe, and this is That Guy with the Pencil writing off.